is The After Show with TelecomTV's Guy Daniels and Ray Maistre.
Welcome to The After Show on TelecomTV. I'm Guy Daniels, Director of Content, and we are broadcasting live at the end of our special DSP Leaders Summit on Open Access. Well, it's time now to sharpen your pencils and get ready to ask some questions, because this is your chance to engage with our panelists. Just use the form on the website to get your questions to us, and don't delay. It's not an eBay auction. Get them in now. Don't leave it too late. Now, as always, I'm joined by Ray Maistre, Editorial Director at TelecomTV. Hello, Ray. Now, today has been focused on the evolution of fixed broadband access in an open cellular first world. And we got things started with a roundtable session. What were the key points that you took from that discussion?
Well, Guy, for years, fixed and mobile integration has been discussed in the industry, and from lots of different perspectives. For a network operator, being able to have unified network architectures that can serve multiple customer types with multiple services has got to be on the roadmap. Telcos just cannot afford to build and run multiple networks anymore. Advances in virtualization, open architectures, and telco cloud models are now enabling such shared integrated systems. And we're starting to see evidence of that at last, as we heard in the roundtable. But it's still very early days, of course, and just how this will impact service creation, delivery, and user experience is the really big question that will not be answered for a few years yet.
Yes, it's going to be interesting to see how these infrastructure advances eventually do lead to evolved services. Okay, now hopefully you've all had the opportunity to watch our roundtable session and made some notes, because it's time now for the live Q&A. So let me once again introduce Peter Bell, Director of Network Technology for OpenReach, Daniel Cortez, Fixed Access Network Manager, Technology and Information Department at Telefonica, and Ronan Kelly, CTO, EMEA and APAC for Adtran. Hello everyone, very good to see you all again. Now we've got lots of audience questions to get through, so Ray, over to you to start us off.
Okay, great, thanks Guy. Daniel, before we start, a quick question for you, and we've been asking this of all of our guests this year during their first appearance on the After Show. What got you into the telecoms industry? How did you get your start in this industry?
Well, I think it is not an easy answer, but I have always been amazed how you can communicate with someone which is on the other side of the world at the moment, and that's why I studied telecommunication engineer, and that's how I end up in this industry and of course in Telefonica.
Okay, excellent. So a lifelong interest in the nature of communications. Great to hear. Okay, thanks, Daniel. So our first viewer question, is fixed broadband technology advancing fast enough so that it won't be challenged by wireless alternatives, whether that's based on 5G, 6G, or any other variants? Are we seeing advances in fixed broadband technology that will always keep it that step ahead of the wireless alternatives?
Well, I think we have seen this in the past, we are seeing it now, and we will see in the future. Fixed access technologies have been always one step ahead from the mobile access technologies. Right now with 5G, we are starting envisioning 1 gigabit per second peak rate for our customers, while, for example, for fixed access networks, we have been enjoying this kind of performance and capacity for the last 10, 15 years with GPON with no problem. Now in fixed access, we are already deploying FGS-PON, so we are over on the 10 gigabit per second, and this doesn't stop here. So whenever 5G it's massively extended, next 6G and on whatever it comes later, fixed access right now it's on 10 gigabit per second, We are already working on 25 gigabit, 50 gigabit per second, which probably will come commercially in 2023, 2024. And of course, that's not going to stop there. In the next future, we will see the next family of technologies will go further and increasing the performance. So fixed mobile, I think, mobile will be always trying to shorten this gap, but in the end, I think the fixed access, as it has been seen during these years, will be always ahead.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Daniel. And Ronan, let's come over to you for this one as well.
I was just going to comment on what Daniel was speaking about there. Fundamentally, I agree with Daniel as well. The fixed infrastructure has managed to stay ahead of the wireless infrastructure for good reason. It's got fibre available to it, and we all know the capacity of fibre extends into the terabits per second range ultimately. I think one thing that's very, very important, though, is we're going to see a significant change now with the broader adoption of 5G capabilities, where extending that gigabit experience as we leave the home, we'll be able to remain in contact and continue to engage in the activities that we're leveraging our fibre connectivity for that gigabit experience on. We'll be able to continue many of those experiences as we leave the home, whether it's into the garden or whether it's heading out into the car in the future for the kids to stay connected and so on and so forth. So extending that, the new applications that are emerging is going to be a critical benefit that 5G will bring for everybody.
Absolutely. It's the services and customer experience, of course, are absolutely vital. But what fibre and 5G and in the future 6G, I'm sure will bring is the opportunity for new applications and a greater level of customer satisfaction as a result. Okay, great. So I think if we don't have any more comments on that one, we'll go over to Guy now for the second question. Over to you, Guy.
Yep, thank you, Ray. Peter, as it's also your first appearance on the After Show, let me ask you this question. What got you into telecoms? How did you get your career start in this industry?
Yeah, there was no grand plan that Peter Bell was going to conquer telecoms. I stumbled into it, but what I have to say, and my message would be, if you're interested in technology, interested in science, and interested in a purposeful business and industry, telecoms is a great area to work in. And I sort of have to pinch myself almost every day about some of the innovations and some of the things I'm seeing as we progress through the years in the technologies.
Excellent. Nicely said, Peter. Thank you very much indeed for those words of encouragement to especially our younger viewers, those who are still in college or school looking at their career choices. Next viewer question then, because we're starting to get them coming in, and is to you, Peter. What advances do you think are still needed to make the transition from copper to fibre more cost effective for operators?
Yeah, I mean, in Openreach, we announced recently that we're going to roll out to 25 million homes. So we'll cover 25 million homes in the UK. And we're well on the way to that. We've already delivered it to 4.5 million of that 25 million. Now, that proves, and we're very confident, that we can build to 25 million homes. And of course, we're always looking for opportunities to improve that, either speed up the rollout or have higher quality or even the cost points. But actually, increasingly, our focus and attention is in life. And how can we diagnose faults in that fibre, in that full fibre solution? How can we fix those faults proactively? And how can we be ahead of the end user knowing there's a problem in their home? And so we're looking at things like optical test heads, like OTDRs, and some other innovative solutions which will come to the fore as we advance. And my request would be to industry leaders, what can you bring to this space? What can you bring to InLife to ensure we have a very hugely reliable and very responsive network?
Thank you, Peter, because as you just said, the numbers, the deployments are massive. These are huge deployments we're seeing from operators, and you should never underestimate the amount of work required to fulfill those. Any of our other guests, Ronan, Daniel, have you got anyone to comment on this one, Ronan?
Just one comment, and it's not really on the technology per se, although it is related to it. And it's something that we're hearing consistently now as presenting a challenge for a lot of the operators trying to bring that full fibre experience to every household across the UK. And that is the availability of the skilled resources. Training is at a premium now at this point in time, and those that are qualified almost in an analogous fashion to the dot-com boom in the 90s, we're seeing a lot of people who have the skills increasingly becoming in demand and commanding higher and higher cost structures with themselves. So that I think there's a major role for the likes of the apprenticeship programs, etc., to really increase the volume of capacity coming into the market by way of skilled labour resources to underpin much of this build out. And I suppose ultimately to get on board with what Peter described as a fantastic and really exciting space to build a career within.
Yeah, good points, Ronan. And there's so many skills required in rolling out these networks. And I know that Peter, you'd like to come back, but Daniel, let me go over to you first and get your thoughts.
Sure. I think it was good to also give the point of view from Telefónica Spain, where we have already, we're in that stage where we have already deployed more than 25 million home pass, and we are already migrating a lot of our customers from copper to fiber. And apart of what Peter has said, and also Ronan about the experience, I think when you have in a country an operator all the deployment of fiber already done, it is like pretty obvious that you need to migrate and switch off the copper because of technical points, of course, economical, and in the end, your customers, you see the numbers and the customer experience, and also how they are more satisfied with the fiber, and in the end, when you look back during the years, you see that nowadays that it has been the right decision. And well, in the end, we expect to have all our copper central offices switched off in the next few years, full 100% coverage of fiber in Spain. So, as I said, when you're at this point, you really see it was the clear choice.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, Daniel. Thank you for that. And Peter, back to you for some more comments.
Yeah, I was just going to pick up on actually I'll pick on both points, but Ronan's point firstly on the skills and skill sets. One of the reasons we've opened Open Street, which is our training facilities across the UK, is exactly that point, is to ensure that the next generation of engineers, next generation of technologists are trained up on the new full fibre solution. And I think the point made by Daniel about the movement to fibre and all IP, as we call it, will be facilitated by the FTTP rollout that we've got in the UK.
Excellent. Thank you for those comments, Peter. Okay, thanks everyone. Well, I think we should maybe hand back over to Ray to see if he's got another question from our audience. Ray.
Absolutely, we do, Guy. So Ronan, we're coming to you and we're going to ask you that same question. What got you into telecoms? How did you get your start in this industry?
Well, as somebody that played around with my 14K modem on my 386 computer at home, dialing up to bulletin boards at the time, I saw a job opportunity for a repair technician for a company called US Robotics. And there was a chap called Kieran Maguire, who now works with Cisco these days. He thankfully gave me a start as a repair tech working on their dial-up access concentrator, which was basically a big pool of modem banks. So that was kind of the start of it all, and over time evolved into support functions, and then getting more involved, obviously, on the technology side of things from CTO office perspective over the last few years.
Okay, excellent. So those early job boards were what brought you into the industry. That's a great angle. We won't ask which year, Ronan. We won't ask which year. So let's get on to the viewer question. 1990s, yeah. To what extent can fixed wireless access? To what extent can fixed wireless access 5G? So let me rephrase that and say 5G fixed wireless access, because I think this is what this question is specifically about. To what extent can 5G fixed wireless access compete with existing wired access connections? Is there a viable economic model for modern FWA deployments?
It's a great question, and I suppose I'll break it into a couple of bits, if that's okay, Ray, with regard to my response. I think the first bit is let's just focus on 5G in its current mode of deployment. And in a very similar fashion to the way 4G satisfies the needs probably of about 10, maybe 12% of the market today, where users are opting out of taking a fixed broadband connection and instead use a 4G connection for that connectivity. 5G will absolutely meet the needs of those consumers, but it'll probably meet the needs of slightly more. So we may see those figures rise from 10 to 12%, maybe to 15 to 20% across the user bases that are out there. We have to keep in mind at the moment that the bulk of the 5G rollouts are all occurring from the same macro cell locations as the 4G network deployments are occurring in as well. So while they do bring much greater capacity than what 4G offers, that capacity is shared across a very large serving area, respectively speaking. I think it's when we start to see the industry transition to the next phase of 5G rollout, where they really start to leverage a lot of the fibre densification that's going to occur from, operators like Openreach building out extensive fibre assets, that they'll be able to move to small cell densification. And that's when they're going to be able to use the millimeter wave technologies, which bring much greater spectrum to enable them to deliver gigabit-like service rates to consumers out there. The one thing I would point out at this point in time as well is there is already a lot of solutions available in the fixed wireless space that are being deployed today that are utilizing millimeter wave spectrum for that gigabit service delivery. And for many of those deployments, they're utilizing license-free spectrum, which gives them a distinct cost structure difference versus the 5G space, where they're utilizing arguably very, very expensive licensed spectrum to deliver broadband services. And there's a lot of question marks out of whether the use of that valuable spectrum for broadband, arguably commodity broadband services, is a viable use of that spectrum in the longer term, or are they better off focusing on the license-free spectrum for those types of use cases?
Okay, excellent. A lot of great points there, Ronan. Thank you. And Daniel, you wanted to come in on this as well.
Yes, just to comment as well, that from Telefonica, for example, we don't see as competing technologies. We see 5G rollouts and the fiber as complementary technologies. Each of those focus on different services, use cases, and probably customers, as Ronan said. So in the end, it is not something about competition, and it is more about use cases, complementary scenarios where you can choose one or the other technology.
Okay, yes, absolutely. And Peter as well.
Yeah, I think I said in the round table, the 5G versus fibre is a bit of a phony war. In fact, they're very complementary. Openreach deploying lots of fibre, very densely deploying fibre, helps with that 5G rollout, which will be connected over that fibre. I think the other thing I would say is, as we go ever more rural, it'll not be one size fits all, and we need a range of technologies which help give the end user the service that they require.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There'll be different scenarios for different countries. But it's interesting. I've noticed just recently that as there's more and more investment in fibre broadband, so the topic of fixed wireless access seems to have bubbled up again, and there's more talk of it. So it's interesting how the two are sort of coming to market together. Okay, great. Thanks very much for the comments. Guy, back over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Ray. And we've got another viewer question in, and this I'll ask all three of you. And if any of you want to answer this one, then just let me know. The question is this: will developments in open software-defined fixed broadband systems enable network operators to play a greater role in smart home or smart building network services? Anybody like to take a stab at that question about the smart home and smart buildings? Daniel, thank you.
Sure, because I think this is something that we're already working on, and it's about our smart Wi-Fi products and these kind of things that although we are already working, we think that this new environment for the fixed access network and also on the devices environment will help a lot to provide new services to our customers and to try to convert into same infrastructure as we have seen. So will help a lot in the user experience. And as we said, if we have these architectures in place where we can introduce third-party services or in-house new services or applications, it is much easier to introduce than with other architectures. So for sure, it is going to help, and it is something that we are already working on.
Thanks, Daniel. And Ronan?
Yeah, I think, first of all, I agree with what Daniel was saying with regard to the Wi-Fi environments within the home. Any environment that is dynamic and constantly changing, the days of throwing humans at resolving those issues are gone. It's too expensive to do that. We need to utilize the automation within the networks, and particularly the new open networks. We need to utilize automation that can allow us to consistently fine-tune those environments. I think one of the other big roles as well in that open environment, and again, heavily leaning on towards automation, is on securing the networks. Increasingly now, as we're rolling out faster and faster pipes to consumers, we see across the UK now consumers can avail of a gigabit symmetric service for £29. And as those pipes come into the home, the risks that are posed if some of the devices within the home become compromised and start to operate as part of a DDoS attack on other users across the globe is substantial. And I think it's going to become incumbent on operators to be able to control that right out to the very edge and stem those sources of bad actors.
Yeah, very good point there, Ronan. Peter?
Yeah, I would just add to that. I mean, I think it's a really important concept and idea. I talked about in life, and basically I think there'll be a number of innovations which will come with that, with SDN capability and virtualization, which will allow us to avoid that truck roll, as Ronan said, prove that connectivity is good, but actually more than that, actually resolve the customer problem. And I think it'll be really interesting in how things progress over the next few years. And we're seeing developments in not only our fibre solutions, which have endpoints, but also in the communication provider hubs that sit in the home. So it's really an interesting concept and idea, and we'll see how that progresses, and has a promise of some real benefit to the future.
Great. Thanks, everybody, for those answers. Ray, I think we should go back over to you and see if we've got any more questions coming in.
Yes, we have another question. If I can also remind our viewers, please keep the questions coming in, and we'll get through as many of them as we can. And please get them in as soon as possible. The sooner you get them in, the sooner we can put them in front of the panel. Okay, here's our next viewer question. And this kind of, in a way, this follows on from the last question, because the question is, Open RAN is associated with greater technology innovation from a broader ecosystem of developers. Will that also be the case for open fixed access networks? So I think the question here is, as fixed access network architectures evolve and become more open, is this going to be a catalyst for greater innovation and new companies to be able to come in and play a role in the sector? Anybody want to comment on that at all? Yes, Ronan.
I think without question, Ray, we're already starting to see the effects of that. If you look at some of the approaches, particularly within the in-home environment around things like OpenSync, etc., we've already seen the entrance now of new actors coming into the market. For example, one of the partners that Adtran works with is Plume Networks, and they interface with basically residential gateway and access point technologies that utilize the OpenSync implementation to deliver a very sophisticated, automated, whole home managed Wi-Fi environment. So there's kind of some of the early adopters jumping on board some of the capabilities that are emerging out there. I think that the whole concept around network effects as well, as more operators implement and embrace these open infrastructures and open architectures, we're going to see more and more entrants come in, which will boost the utility then of the open infrastructures for the operators, which will further fuel adoption as well across the board. So it's one of those, you kind of have a chicken and egg. Thankfully, I think we're at the point where both the chicken and egg are there now at this stage, and the momentum is slowly but surely starting to build.
Okay, excellent. Chicken and egg. That's a combo I like to hear about. Daniel, let's come to you on this one as well. Are we going to see more innovation in the fixed broadband sector?
Yeah, I think it is something that needs and it's going to happen, because we are creating a total new ecosystem, and we cannot even envision what kind of applications or services can really be created. As we can start thinking about network things and cooperation synchronization with Wi-Fi, fixed and mobile convergence as well. But there will be a lot of things that we cannot even imagine today that will happen. And I think since the principles and the concepts from Open RAN are quite similar, the same for open access, we will definitely see this kind of new innovation and implementations.
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially as we're starting to hear some operators talk about how they're going to be able to utilize some of the same IT infrastructure that they're developing for Open RAN and use that for other access technologies as well. So we're really at the early stages here, but at the early stages of an exciting period in the industry, I think. Okay, Guy, I think I will come back to you at this point.
I think Peter just wanted to come in there as well.
I beg your pardon. Sorry. I'm sorry, Peter.
Yeah, I'm really pleased to hear that from Ronan. So I think we're up for innovation, right? So anything which helps innovative, which helps the industry is a good thing. So I think as well as the chicken and egg, I think it's going to be a push and pull. So maybe I need to be more demanding of our vendor community. So I'll be having a chat with Ronan after this.
Look forward to it, Peter.
Excellent. Good way to end that little bit of discussion. Ronan, I saw you move more towards the edge of your seat there, just as Peter said that. So
no, we absolutely welcome that discussion.
No, that's great to hear. Anything that will be a catalyst for innovation in the industry, I think, can only be a good thing, and that is being driven more and more by the operators, which is great to see. Okay, so sorry for missing you out there, Peter. I didn't see your indication there, but glad to get you in, and Guy, will hand back over to you now, I think.
Yep, thank you, Ray. Well, I think it's about time we checked in on our audience poll, because we only have one day for this summit, so there's only one poll this time around. Go ahead and take part if you haven't done so already. It's right here on the website, nice and simple. Now, today's question is, should fixed and mobile access networks share the same distributed cloud architecture? And you can see the live results working their way through the graphic there as they come in. These are results so far. Definitely skewed towards the positive there. I looked at them a little bit earlier and it was absolutely yes was leading the pack, but look at that, it's moving a bit. It looks also like the almost yes. So second one down is currently leading the field. But let us know what you think and click on your answer selection. It's only a choice of 1 to 5. It's that easy. We'll total up the results at the end of the week and share them later on TelecomTV. Okay, back to our Q&A. We're about 30 minutes or so into the program now, but we still have time to answer a few more of your questions. So please, if you haven't already done so, send them in. Please keep them coming. Ray, have we got our next viewer question?
Okay, yes, we have another question here on open access technologies. And the question here for the panel is, do open access technology and architecture developments account for the potential and anticipated growth in private networks? Will such networks be mainly or totally wireless, or will fibre play a role beyond the demarcation point? So this is an interesting question, because actually only, I think earlier this week or late last week, KPN announced that it was helping one of the major ports in the Netherlands to build a new private network, and the deployment was fibre and I think it was 5G as well. So it was a private network, fibre and 5G, and I think using a lot of open access architectures there. So question for anybody here on the panel. Do we think that these kind of technologies are going to play a role in private networks? Ronan?
I think it's without question with regard to the 5G side of things. The private 5G network infrastructures are already starting to enjoy deployment with some of the bigger manufacturing names around the globe. What we're starting to see now as well is a lot of interest in both private fiber deployments and unusually now leveraging PON architectures on campus deployments, for example, in a passive optical LAN type environment. But also what we're seeing now is the utilization of some of the millimeter wave fixed wireless technologies for gigabit extension around those campus networks also. So we can see a scenario where you'll have a hybrid of fiber, fixed wireless access for backhaul, and then the 5G RAN extensions off that then for connection to the devices as we go forward. And obviously, wherever possible, that they can utilize the initiatives that have been born out of the open source community, etc. That's obviously going to prove beneficial with regard to flexibility and applications that will be developed.
Okay, excellent. Good to hear that is starting to happen already. Any other comments on private network opportunities at all? Yes, sorry, Daniel. Yes.
Yes, I think that it is similar as the use cases for residential or other deployment scenarios. In the end, within an enterprise, we will be seeing different use cases. We will have our workstations, we will have machinery, we will have people moving around. So in the end, this approach with passive optical lines, where we can take advantage of the PON structure for delivering as well the access points from Wi-Fi or from 5G, I think it's going to be, or it is going to be necessary in the near future, and it is going to be the best way to really deliver the best experience also within this campus or enterprise.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, and that makes total sense as well. Yes, Ronan, I want to come back to you now.
Just one additional comment as well, Ray. I think we're going to see more emergence with regard to the concepts around neutral host as well in these infrastructures. Quite often, some of the enterprises, particularly mid-sized enterprises, are not going to be able to afford to build their own private networks. However, they still want to access the benefits of it, and there's definitely a role for neutral host bodies to play in that space as well. Build it on their behalf and then segment or slice the networks accordingly to the needs of the users on it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a great point. And I guess the introduction of more cloud-based open technologies and architectures is going to enable some new companies to enter some of these sectors. I'm sure some of the systems integrators are rubbing their hands at the moment and thinking about some of the opportunities they have. So it's going to be a very interesting development in terms of the players as well as the technologies and services. Okay, fantastic. Guy, have we got time for any more questions?
Yes, sir, I think we absolutely do. And we've just a couple of minutes ago got a question in here. Let me read this one out to everyone. We're hearing a lot about telecom grade silicon at the moment, especially for RAN equipment. Do we think we need more efficient or powerful dedicated silicon in fixed access technology as well? So this sort of trend that's emerging on silicon, Ronan, please.
If for no other reason to improve on the efficiency of the equipment that's being deployed so that we can all much more rapidly get to a net zero position as an industry, we absolutely need to continue to avail of innovation in the silicon space. I think, thankfully now, as the industry is transitioning towards open disaggregated architectures as well, the ease with which new innovations on the silicon component side of things can be integrated into a network without having to give considerations to components that were selected for a system that might be 5 or 10 years old and it has to interoperate with something new. With the disaggregated approach, everything interconnects through standardized Ethernet, which is the only real consideration you've got to give when introducing new components into that environment. And there's huge benefits to be achieved with regard to reductions in power and cooling requirements, but also massive increases in density of components as well, which allows for more subscribers per rack unit of space, which can bring big savings with regard to the buildings that the equipment is deployed within.
Thank you, Ronan. Yeah, we're absolutely hearing about power efficiency and operating efficiencies and how advances in silicon could help us with that one. Any other thoughts about the innovation in silicon, Peter?
I think I'll just pick up on Ronan's point, actually. I think it's incumbent of us as industry leaders to drive that net neutral place and look at our energy consumption. I think the time's gone where we didn't worry about it. And so anything which drives down more efficient deployments in terms of energy actually helps us in any case, because we haven't got to wait for the power to be there or the cooling to be there. So I endorse everything Ronan said about looking at the energy efficiency. And I think it's something which is going to be an increasing trend in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely concur with that. Absolutely right. Thank you, Peter. Well, I think if we've got no more comments on that question, we are approaching the end of our showtime, Ray. So I think we had best wrap things up for today. End of our after show then. Thank you very much to all of our guests who joined us for this live program and to our audience for sending in those questions. Well, that's a wrap for the Open Access Summit, but we still have a few more treats in store, don't we, Ray?
Yes, we have a delegate report that we produce after each summit with highlights of each session and a reminder of the summit's full content. This is available free to download for those who have registered for the summit.
And it won't be that long before our next summit, which marks the return of the popular Edgeonomics. That's back again for its second year.
Absolutely. And you can be sure, Guy, that we'll be using the same corny gags as we did during last year's Edgeonomics Summit. The industry may have moved on, but our joke books are well and truly stuck in the 1980s.
Well, the old ones are always the best. Edgeonomics starts on Tuesday, the 22nd of June. So register now if you want to be able to interact with our guests and send in questions. But until then, from Ray and me, thank you very much for watching and goodbye.
The after show was recorded in front of a live online audience.